1. Back in 2017, I worked for a chain restaurant I'll call Pan Am, like the young adult book that name comes from. It's popular with teens, middle-aged soccer moms, and certain church groups who are obsessed with image, bagels, and bread bowls. You know the place. This job is the mecca of Karens. They turn and face this fucker several times a day. And as the Karen is not a religion of peace, dealing with them was often a daily occurrence. I suspected nothing when the tall, thin lady wearing a silk headscarf wafted through the doors with her young teen son in tow. She ordered very particularly. Everything had a special instruction, and when she paid, her card was declined. "Run it again," she sniffed, touching the scarf. She had no eyebrows, I noted. The scarf wasn't an accessory, but a necessity. She was obviously mid-chemo. I smiled at her. Of course. I replied, thinking, ugh. Whoever sent her out to pick up food was an asshole. Chemo exhausts people. My sadness for her had no effect on the gift card. It was empty. "I'm sorry, it's definitely spent, ma'am." I apologized. "Would you care to pay a different way?" "Listen to me carefully." She hissed at me through gritted teeth, speaking very softly as she was. Her sudden hatred was clear. "Unless you're trying to steal my gift card money, you're doing it wrong. There's $35 on there. I'm not paying a different way to accommodate stupid." I raised my eyebrows and stepped back. What the fuck? "Ma'am, I can assure you that these registers are so simple that yes, even I can operate them. Unfortunately, there is still no money on there. Perhaps someone used it and neglected to tell you." "Are you calling me a liar?" She inhaled, starting to visibly shake in her fury. She called me a stupid thief, but projection must have had a grip on her. "You are useless." Her stage whisper was so out of place with her rage that I didn't realize what she was doing until after she asked for the manager. "I am the manager," I replied, using courtesy as armor. "Your supervisor, then," she spat back. "Okie dokie." As I went to fetch the vacuous jackass who was my supervisor, I saw Karen's plan plainly. She whipped off the headscarf, revealing her bald, vulnerable-looking head, and instantly, with a skyward look, summoned fat tears. Jesus, Karen was weaponizing her cancer. That's why she'd whispered at me. There was probably never any money on that gift card. This bitch thought we would comp her food because cancer. I chuckled. Little did she know, no matter how advanced a Karen was in the path of entitled assholery, the GM of this place was immune. Blank-eyed as a cow, my supervisor didn't care about anyone or anything, and was on her way to a level of Karen that may eventually eclipse even her entitlement. The Karen's son had fled, and hiding behind a partition he rolled his eyes, as pathetically crying his mother made her Oscar bid, and GM Karen nasally commiserated. The general manager Karen was triumphant, the other was defeated. For now. I watched her from my safe area by the milk steamer. She fluttered her hands helplessly one last time, then snapped out of her con. She matter-of-factly replaced the headscarf, stormed over to Junior, and dragged him away to the parking lot. Jesus, I thought I'd seen it all. The sudden tears, the scarf. She was the most memorable Karen I had ever seen in action. And it hurt something real in my soul. Using cancer for free Panem is still the apogee of piece of shit. Just wow. God, I hated that place and everyone in it. 2. Recently, I applied for a job as one of the directors of Company X, and I was hired. I can't yet start as my old jobs, working 2, go on until January, but they did ask me if I could join the applications for another position, and one of my future assistant. So I was to travel that way, and one thing about me is that I hate commuting in the fancy clothes. So, on my way there, I looked like a hobo that emerged from the sewers with my casual jeans and oversized hoodie with a funny T-Rex attempting CPR on it. Bonus, I got to travel first class in my T-Rex hoodie. I would change into something fancy when I got there. Anyhow, along the way, some blonde Instagram model-type lady gets in as well. We'll name her Bim. I don't pay much attention. I'm reading Terry Pratchett, so priorities. Eventually, one of the train guards comes by. They have to do train tickets aside from security sometimes if staffing is low. I complimented him on his hair. Always try to give someone a compliment on something they put effort into, pro tip. He compliments me on my hoodie, and eventually gets to Miss Bim. Apparently, Bim had an economy ticket, not first class. Drama ensued. She was super important because she was on her way to Business X. Hey, I work there too. And he should totally let her sit first class because she was more important than important. Especially more important than he was. She stressed the important bit. Mr. Train Guard did not budge. She had wasted her chance to leave to economy class, so she was getting a fine. Then Miss Bim got a bit more aggressive, trying to knock his tablet from his hands, calling him names and yelling about me obviously not belonging in first class in my ugly T-Rex hoodie. Oh. And that if I was allowed to sit there, she should also be. Long story short, Mr. Train Guard got really clear with her that he would toss her from the train. And the way he said it got my hopes up for it being a toss while it was driving. But he clarified that it would be at the next station. Bim eventually gave in and left for economy class, with her lovely fine. Fast forward, I'm all dolled up in my fancy clothes and I head to the front desk to see who my future assistant is. Seemingly, that was not the way we were used to, as the lovely front desk lady was pretty confused and explained that the common practice is to let either an assistant or facility worker escort the interviewees. Not on my watch. They have more important things to do. In comes Miss Bim. She did not recognize me without my T-Rex hoodie. So we walked towards a room where we could do the interview. She is super kind and acts like a perfect assistant. So I ask her if she ever reacts in anger. She says no. I grab my T-Rex hoodie from my bag with a stern, "One more chance to be honest with me" face, which always works in my kids. I'm sure she was pretty red, but I could not see underneath her makeup. As she tried to explain how that incident was not her fault, and it was all sexism and unfair treatment, needless to say, she did not get the job. Those who can't treat workers of every kind with kindness don't get my vote to work with me. Luckily, there were other applicants, and one of them will be my assistant starting February. Lovely young lady in her early 60s, who was approaching retirement but wanted to continue working in the assisting field. Super experienced and excited, just what I love. 3. One of my college friends had an aunt I'll call Fanny. That's partly for privacy and because she was an ass. She was his father's sister. Over the years, I heard many Aunt Fanny stories, though I've forgotten most of them. None were outrageous and were more along the lines of, "There she goes again." Mostly, she kept insisting that my friend's father was supposed to support her financially. She'd gotten the idea that it was an Italian tradition for a man to support his unmarried sisters. Never mind that they'd been in the US for multiple generations and hadn't ever followed old world customs. Never mind that he wasn't wealthy, and never mind that she'd been working for years either. The small bit of sympathy I had for her was that she'd had few opportunities. Fanny had come of age in an era when middle-class women were mostly limited to being teachers, nurses, or secretaries. So she had been pushed into work she'd never liked. Still, it wasn't anyone else's job to support her, and she nagged Dad constantly, even when he was in treatment for cancer. Twice. When she wasn't yammering about money, she was demanding he do favors for her, fix stuff, drive her around, even though she had a car and license, do her taxes, etc. And there were constant complaints about the neighbors bothering her, usually just with their existence. The second time, the cancer killed him. Fanny immediately began pestering my friend to support her and do her errands, since he was now the man of the family. Of course, this didn't fly. My friend despised her, partly for her general uselessness, and mostly for how she treated his dad. He made a few obligatory visits and helped her move into assisted living and soon after a nursing facility. She'd never taken good care of herself. But he never gave her a cent and refused to do errands for her. She never gave up pestering and complaining, of course. To get attention, Fanny concocted stories about nefarious dealings in the nursing home. One evening, she called him around 10 p.m. and stage whispered, "There's a drug deal going down in my room." He told the friend group about this, and it became one of our taglines for years, long after Aunt Fanny had snuffed it. Later, several workers at the nursing home were busted for stealing money and drugs from residents, and for conducting drug deals on the premises. There wasn't much screening of employees back in the 80s, so it was actually possible Aunt Fanny had witnessed a drug deal. Too bad she cried wolf dozens of times in the past. 4. So, I have a bad knee. We can't figure out what the fuck is wrong with it. It's not a big deal, but most days it's just a bit achy. Sometimes it gets so bad that I cannot put any weight on it while it's bent. If I do, I will fall and probably make it worse. Those are rare days, but today was one of those days where I was basically limping with a knee brace. Lucky me. I was in pain, but I really needed to get my mom and I's meds from the pharmacy. She's just recovering from a major surgery that leaves her shoulder temporarily paralyzed. And I cannot drive yet, so I had to take the bus. The thing is that we live in a very rural village halfway up the mountain. There is no police station, there is literally no chain businesses like Walmart, save for a few gas stations, and there is not even a doctor's office. They're working on building a walk-in pharmacy, thank God. And all of those things are a highway away. There's been a blizzard yesterday and the whole night, so the roads and everything is covered with a good blanket of snow. But the weather itself today wasn't as bad, it was just cold. To make everything even worse, the buses only come to my village once every 2 hours. And the connecting buses in the main city don't match up, so what would be a 30-minute trip to the pharmacy was now a 4-hour outing. So I'm in pain and cold. I know I'm going to be wandering around Wally World aimlessly for at least 3 hours. But I'm willing to endure it because my mom really needs these meds. And I can't cope well without my own either. While I'm waiting, I can look for some Pokemon card deals or something. So, finally got the meds, and I had myself a Zoroark V-Star box, and I was pleasantly surprised when a bus pulls up to the stop almost right away. My bus isn't this one, but I heard from friends that this number has an end destination of my village, and just goes the long way around, which ended up being a downside. So I confirmed it with the driver and got on, thinking I just won the lottery. I knew the route was bumpy, but I would be able to sit down for an hour and just relax until I could get home and check on my mom. And then I could open my Pokemon cards. So I got on the bus and sat down in front, which is reserved for physically disabled people. I really hated doing this, but my knee was the worst it's ever been from walking around, and I honestly didn't trust it to take me up the few steps to the regular seating. I figured it wouldn't be as big a deal, as this bus is usually very empty. Another nice lady in a wheelchair comes in and gets situated, which made me feel a bit uneasy, but I just shrugged it off. These buses are not designed in the best way. As to fit a wheelchair in the proper space, they have to flip up a whole section of seating. After a few stops, the bus is actually quite full for some reason, and I felt a bit stupid sitting there with my Pokemon box, but I'm only 40 minutes from my village, so it's no big deal. An older man comes onto the bus, and immediately he stares at me. I'm a bit of a meek person, so I avert my eyes immediately. I only look up again when he clears his throat. He is glaring right down at me now. I try to subtly stretch my leg and knee brace to show him I'm sitting here for a reason, without actually engaging because I really hate confrontation. The interaction we had was short and recent, but I have the memory of a goldfish, so this is not completely accurate. Could you move? I'm really sorry, sir, but I've been walking around all day and... Yeah, I've been walking around all day as well. I think a young woman like you could stand a bit longer. I've got a bit of a knee issue, it's pretty bad right now. I wanted to shrink up into nothing at this point. I hate attention, and I hate taking up space.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Look, kid, just fucking move. Wearing a knee brace doesn't mean you can take this seat from the elderly like me who need it.
I wish I could say I stood up for myself and that the other passengers backed me up. But really, I just stood up and scurried away into the corner by the door to try and shrink away. Thankfully, most of the other people pretend not to notice the exchange, and the old man didn't talk to me again after that. The bumpy ride was hell, and there's no satisfaction here, but I just wanted to sort of vent, I guess. I mean, I don't completely fault him, because I take the bus often, and when I'm not temporarily disabled, I'm always standing or sitting in the regular seats if I can. Maybe he's seen me doing that before, and that's what fueled his skepticism, I don't know. At least I got a Sylveon VMAX, not Trainer Gallery or Alt Art, unfortunately. Am I right? Also, additionally, I prefer he-him terms, so it made it a bit worse that he misgendered me, but I also understand, because I'm unable to bind, amongst other things. 5. So for some backstory as to why my family is moving. I'm a 21-year-old female and live with my parents. Please don't come after me for that. I have no credit to my name, so can't get my own place, and I've been looking for a job. We had this other family living with us, but something happened. Story for another time. Which made the mother want to move. She went on a huge rant about how she didn't feel welcome anymore, and that my mother never makes time to hang out with her, and that she uses her seizures as an excuse. They inherited a house in North Carolina and are moving up there. Onto the story. So like I said, they're moving and had gotten most of their things. They have only been here 2 times since they started to move. During that time, I found this cat around our house. It came up to me, and at first, we thought it was either a stray or just a cat being mistreated. Me and my mother, would take care of that cat, and I posted on a site for lost and found animals to see if the cat had gotten out and if the owner was looking for them. After some time, I named the cat Ake, and it became our outside cat. Then one day, Molly and her husband came back with a U-Haul to get more of their things. My mom knows how Molly is. She would see an animal and just pick it up and claim it's hers, even if it had an owner or not. That's what she did with her one cat, William. He had a collar and everything. Not to mention, he wants to get out a lot. Probably to go back home. But now he can't, since she's taking him up to North Carolina. So because of that, my mom had me go outside to find Ake, since she didn't want Molly taking her. We had found out the cat's gender. I did find her, and brought her up to the front door. They lived in the back of the property. Later, my sister's boyfriend, a cheating jerk, told us that when Molly first saw Ake, she was like, "Oh, look, a cat." And her husband, without missing a beat,
"No, we can't take the cat."
As if he knew what she was thinking. They soon left after that, then the next day. Oh boy, this pissed me off. Again, I would like to say none of us had a way of knowing if the cat had an owner or not. They sure enough didn't. The next day they came back and my mother couldn't find Ake anywhere. She had me go check the backyard. I called out to her and didn't find her. Then, just as Molly and her husband were about to leave, I saw a cat's head pop up from Molly's car. This lady had picked this cat up and put her in the car with her. I quickly ran to her front driver's side, tapped on the window. She looked annoyed at me and rolled down the back window. The front window was broken, according to her daughter. Molly then opened the door, and just as she did, Ake jumped out of the car, and she looked annoyed at this. I told her a lie, that Ake was my neighbor's cat, and she looked annoyed by that. I get it, she wanted the cat, but she should have asked around if the cat had an owner, instead of jumping to the conclusion that it was a stray. I mean, she didn't bother asking us. She thanked me. I could hear the annoyance in her voice. She closed the door, and drove up a bit until her husband asked what was wrong. Their reasoning to believe the cat was a stray was because of those 2 times when they saw the cat outside. Which is stupid, since there is another cat we call Mama Cat. They know she isn't a stray, so how was Ake any different? They left, and I was shaking with anger. I wouldn't have minded if they took the cat if she was actually a stray, since we, my family, can't take her into the house. We have 4 other cats and Ake doesn't get along with them. She doesn't like them, and 2 dogs. And the dogs really hate the cats, imagine getting another. But I was more upset at the fact they didn't bother to go around and ask if the cat was someone's cat, cause turns out my lie was actually true. Ake is my neighbor's cat. My dad confirmed it with her. So if I didn't stop them in time, she would have taken off with my neighbor's cat, never seeing it again. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, episode 93. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Let's see, I think this goes up on the 27th originally. Okay. No special shout-outs. One tomorrow, I believe. But for now, let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, what is your favorite thing about the time after Christmas Day? For me, it's probably because all the yummy Christmas food tends to get discounted in the stores. I like mince pies, and that's always a good time to buy a few extra boxes and keep them in the cupboard. They're especially nice with a nice warm cup of tea this time of year. Perhaps in the future, well, hopefully, my favorite things about this time of year will change. But for now, that's what it is. I look very much forward to seeing your guys leave yours in the comments. With that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.